Today is officially Jonathan Toews Day. The debut of the long-awaited new Winnipeg Jet, Jonathan Toews, is here. It's preseason. Get hyped. It's happening tonight.
You're Locked On Jets, your daily podcast on the Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey friends, and welcome to tonight's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Harrison Lee, an avid Winnipeg Jets fan and an online blogger. You can follow me on Twitter at HLivingLoco and at LO_Winnipeg Jets. Thanks for making Locked On Jets your first listen of the day, every day. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all of your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. Doing so, of course, is always free of charge and ensures you never miss another episode. Most of all, though, we just love and appreciate your support. Tonight's episode, obviously, we have some stuff to talk about. It'll be preseason game number 2 later tonight. And, of course, we are going to see the debut of Jonathan Toews, which I think a lot of you are pretty hyped about. It's going to be a big deal for the franchise. But perhaps the biggest question for all of us is, what the heck does he even look like? It's been 2 years since he last played NHL hockey. This is going to be the most serious scrimmage time that he's had to date. 2 years off, obviously the IQ and decision-making are probably still perfectly fine. The hands probably work pretty well, or at least hopefully well, but everything else, who knows? Bit of a mystery box. So this will be our first chance to figure out what he's like. We're going to talk through, some interesting, obviously some sendbacks. Some players have been cut from camp. Who's still around, what we might see from some of the players in the second game, and what to expect, all coming right up. But of course, let's dive into the single biggest thing for this one. It is Jonathan Toews time. And Toews, I'm going to be honest, I don't know what he's going to do for the Jets. I think it's still very much up for debate. This is one of the biggest mystery bag moments of the entire season. And Toews, on paper, could be a big force multiplier for the Jets in their middle and bottom six. But I think the ideal plan is in your bottom six, not your second line, where he currently is playing. That's going to be a bit of a sticking point, I think, to start the year. Toews, I don't know what his readiness is like. He's been practicing for a bit. He's been working out. Obviously, he's trying to get himself into game shape. But I think even he would say that, compared to like NHL's, actual game time and ice time, it's just not the same. Practice is practice. It's not, actual game state situations. And so this is going to be a bit of an adjustment and learning curve, I think, for everyone involved. And I would also say that if you are hoping that Toews is going to hit the ground running, I would preach patience. I think JT is going to take serious time to warm up. It wouldn't shock me if it even takes a couple of months. Obviously after a month, you might start getting a little bit worried if maybe he's not able to get up to speed in time. But I would have a fairly long period where I'd expect him to slowly ramp up. And he's going to have to do this for at least a month or two until Lowry's back, right? Adam is supposed to come back sometime around November-ish is what we're hearing, but we don't really know for sure. And so until that starts to take a more crystallized form and picture, we're just going to have to hope that Toews can do it. If not, of course, Nemesnikov has been 2C before, but you probably know why Nemesnikov as your 2C maybe isn't what you'd be looking for the run of the season, right? You are hoping that the Jets can find a way to really add some skill depth down the middle. And, they're putting a lot of eggs in this Toews basket. It's why I'm not 100% sure about the season's plan. Winnipeg is trying this. They've signed a lot of aging free agents, and Toews, of course, is going to lead the pack here in terms of notoriety. Will he lead the pack in terms of on-ice performance? Your guess is as good as mine. He will be playing likely with Nyquist and Perfetti to start the season, so that trio is probably going to be the one that I think gets the most scrutiny. I think folks are going to want to know how he does, all that stuff. So this is going to be an interesting one, right? I think this game for the Jets is also a huge marketing thing. Winnipeg is obviously very excited about the opportunity to bring one of the biggest free agents they've ever signed into this organization. He's a hometown hero. Fans love him. There are, rinks dedicated to his name in Manitoba. This is a bit of a full circle moment, I think, in the Winnipeg Jets community. Will it have the impact during the regular season that I think people are hoping for? That part is still up for debate. I think on the ice is probably where I have the most questions. Off the ice, though, I think a lot of folks are going to be filling the stands. I would expect, most games throughout the first couple months of home outings to be sold out, if not all of them, heading into next year. I think people are just crazy for Toews and they want to see him. This is, again, a bit of a wish fulfillment moment for a lot of the fan base. And it makes me wonder, should Toews and the team maybe struggle at first? How long will the grace period last? Will fans, continue to be happy about the state of the team if the Jets maybe aren't quite as good as you'd expect? What is the expectation? Preseason was jam-packed if the first game is anything to go by. So game number 2, it'll be interesting to see how this goes. I would expect a pretty close to sold-out crowd if it's not already. It should be a big outing for the Jets. I think the fan base is ready for this. Will we see a big offensive explosion from this middle six as a result of Toews jumping in? Again, hard to say. The foot speed's going to be an issue, and it's not just Toews that's going to deal with this. His line mates aren't exactly the fastest either. Perfetti and Nyquist are, at various stages of their careers, but both aren't exactly known for being top-end speedsters. So, yeah, how this all kind of goes is certainly up for debate. But as far as the Jets are concerned and what this group is going to do, look, for just an exhibition game, I think this will probably be one of the most hyped preseason games the Jets have ever played. I think that this is, for a lot of folks, going to be, must-see TV. I'd expect half of Manitoba to be tuned in. This is the coming home moment that I think Jets fans have been dying for. It'd be not too dissimilar from Teemu Selanne returning in ways, even if, again, slightly different context. And obviously this is going to be a bit of a different experience. But yeah, I'm certainly curious to see what Toews does. I have set my expectations very low. I think, if he's unable to really have a strong on-ice impact this year, the biggest thing that he can do is mentor a lot of the kids. Jaeger is going to want to learn from him. Lambert probably too. I think a lot of the guys will want to chat with him, learn how he developed into the pro that he became, and what made him one of the best centers the league has ever seen. There's a lot of experience there. He'll bring that to this Jets org. Hopefully he can kind of mentor some of the kids. And it'd be great if the Jets actually called the kids up so that they can learn from him. It's hopefully not just going to be a situation where they're all with the Moose the whole year. No one has a chance to come in, and it's a very vet-heavy lineup. I think Winnipeg, frankly, just needs youth talent in general, and they need to find a way to raise the playoff ceiling, which maybe Toews may not be able to do himself, but he can help spur some of that change and some of that growth with some of the kids. So this will be an interesting one, but at least for just preseason game number 2, we're going to see what he can do alongside Nyquist and Perfetti, should that be the line. But of course, there have been some changes to the roster. We'll talk about who has been moved out and who to watch out for here in game number 2 as we get deeper and deeper into preseason. Before we dive into the camp cuts and stuff, did want to shout out our friends and partners at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. As a Ravens fan, it's not exactly been the happiest start to the season for me. If you are the kind of person who likes to bet on, say, fumbles, this is probably your best chance to win big. $5 down on a Derrick Henry fumble, you might actually come away with some cash to win even more. $300 in bonus bets if you're a brand new user. Maybe you also think you know who's going to win some of these upcoming week's matchups. Maybe you think you know who the MVP is going to be this year. It's going to be a tight battle between guys like Allen, Saquon, and Lamar, but perhaps you already know who's going to be anointed first. You can get your $5 bets in right now, and it's safe, secure, quick. All you have to do is download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Hey friends, and welcome back to this episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Every day, thank you so much for rejoining us in tonight's episode as we are continuing to chat about preseason game number 2, some camp cuts for the Jets. Winnipeg has trimmed the roster by 6 players yesterday. They have sent Kevin He, Owen Martin, Jacob Cloutier, and Edison Engel back to their respective squads. And then Alex Worthington and Ethan Frisch have been sent down to the Moose camp. As far as the camp cuts are concerned, none of this is shocking. All of these guys, for the most part, are very young. Kevin He will be back later this year, should the Moose still be in the playoff hunt. Obviously, if the Ice Dogs have a tough season and maybe don't go that far, he will be back, I think, for his first pro season. This will be the first real pro action he gets. And given what he did in the first preseason game in camp, he looks really easy to project as a pro. Like, he just has a layer of skill and talent and work ethic that I think looked really fun yesterday, and certainly looks more like the kind of player who's going to slide into a middle six role. Does he have further upside? We'll see. That drop pass that he did from the neutral zone transition pickup and reception that he turned a bit of a busted play into, a beautiful goal assist to Zanny Jokin. That's the kind of stuff that you're going to want to see from him as he starts off not only his Niagara season, but eventually the tail end of the Moose season here, should he be able to make the jump. So not shocked there, but I think he had a very impressive camp. He looks like he's very close to the pros, and you can see why the Jets already gave him a ZLC. Owen Martin, I didn't have as many thoughts about, at least from the early prospect showcases. I thought he had a couple of smart plays. This is his first real action against guys who are slightly older than him, and maybe against some really top prospects. So in some of the flashes where he would have a good counter or rush chance, I thought he did pretty well. He had a couple of smart defensive reads. Obviously he'll want to continue to grow his offensive game, and I think the tool set there is a very good foundation. So, I think he'll be, again, another solid depth guy who can eventually help out the Jets in a few years. Cloutier, I think, did fine in terms of like a bottom six deployment. Nothing too fancy that we saw, so far. I think you want him to continue to hone those offensive instincts, develop more of the goal mouth attacks and, some of the chaos creation. But that, is certainly, again, first real action against some pro level guys. Don't want to read too much into it. As far as Engel is concerned, I think he had some flashes of promise, some good puck moving ability, some decent passes. There were also moments where he would kind of get schooled by some of the guys who have more pro experience. And Engel is, a fresh-faced young kid just drafted to the Jets org. Not really shocking, right? He's used to playing guys who are more in his age bracket and perhaps not of the Demidovs out there who are just exceptionally talented and, quite frankly, are at a tier of talent that even some of the Jets prospects at the top of the pool would struggle to meet. So, nothing to be ashamed of. I think he'll continue to develop and grow, and I am excited to see what he does. That now leaves the Jets with a game group for this Tuesday game. Eric Comrie and DiVincentis will be in net. On defense, you've got a mixture of Schenn, Miller, Heinola, Sandberg, Clegg, Salamonson, Sautner, and Anhorn. And then Nyquist, Toews, Shaw, Ford, Yeager, Barlow, Wagner, Julian, Pearson, Dewar, Chibrikov, Perfetti, and Lambert. Now, they will have a couple of guys scratched here. 2 guys on the blue line, 1 guy at forward. So I would say that if we're looking at who will probably be scratched, if I had to guess, I would think Salamonson maybe gets the game off. You might see Miller also get scratched. This might be a rotated group, or maybe there's a surprise in there, but I do think they'll probably bring in some of the players who haven't yet got some game action in. So I would expect to see maybe Clegg, Sautner, Anhorn, Sandberg, and Heinola, maybe Schenn. These are the guys who haven't yet had a chance, and maybe this will help them shake off the rust. But I do think Schenn at least will be in for sure. Probably Sandberg. I would also think Heinola has to play, and then they can sort of figure out the rest with how they want to arrange those pairings. At forward, if I had to guess as to who might be scratched looking at this list, maybe Lambert or Chibrikov. Chibrikov, he's still getting up to speed, and I think they might need to be a little bit careful with his physicality and make sure that he doesn't experience a setback. He's obviously still warming up, still getting up to speed, so maybe they'll keep him in for that factor. But, regardless, this is a pretty solid forward group. I would say this is a bit more of a mixture between the Jets and Moose. The first game was very Moose heavy. This game is going to be more of a 50-50 sort of split. So with Toews coming in, obviously your top line should be Toews, Perfetti, and Nyquist. You'll probably have Jaeger and Barlow maybe play together, perhaps Lambert as well. We've seen Jaeger kind of mix and match with some of these guys before. I think they're trying to figure out the best place to deploy him, how they should play him, who he should be paired with for this upcoming Moose season. And so this is a really good chance to kind of mess around. We'll also get some time probably with Tanner Pearson. Now, I've mentioned Pearson kind of in passing. I think Tanner's going to be one of those guys who will put up probably 10-ish, 15-ish goals in a depth role. And, sure, the quality of play may leave something to be desired defensively. But in terms of the offensive production, I think it'll be at an adequate level. And for the contract price, you really won't be able to complain. I think he'll do a fine enough job. Whether somebody else would be able to do that same job from the Moose, I don't really know. Chibrikov might have the best chance at that sort of thing. But, Pearson's got the experience. He can kind of bring some championship pedigree with him. And so, I'm not too upset about that either way. In terms of other guys, obviously Barlow is hoping to continue a pretty strong prospect showdown. I think he'll have an opportunity to put on some good show and performances in this preseason. Hopefully he continues to do that. Walker Dewar, you'd probably want to see a little more from. I think he was okay in the first game, but other than some hits and physicality, didn't really have too many thoughts. But yeah, we're starting to get closer and closer to narrowing down some of the pool here. I would say a lot of these guys are going to be Moose bound, and as we start to get closer to the end of the preseason next week, we'll have more and more of the regular starting lineup starting to filter back in. They're already in Winnipeg. A lot of them have already been practicing, so now it's just sort of whittling down camp. If I had to guess as to who will probably stick around the longest looking at this, I think Lambert and Chibrikov have two of the best shots at that. Don't be shocked if we see some time for Parker Ford as well. Ford is in this group, and I know he didn't get game time in the first one, but I think he's one of those players that's been sort of in the fringes. We'll talk a little bit about his chances in a bit. I want to focus on some particular players to watch out for in game number 2, assuming they do start, and how they might start to improve their odds of either getting a call-up, maybe even fighting for a spot to start in the opening night lineup. It's a very competitive roster right now. I've heard Kevin Sawyer and others mention that they don't know what this Jets lineup is going to look like. I can already tell you, I have a pretty good feeling about what we're going to see, and they probably do too, to a degree. I don't think that there's actually going to be that many surprises. I think what we saw from Murat Atesh and a few others probably is as close to what the Jets' actual lineup is going to look like, not only based on the skill and quality they have, but also historical patterns, right? The Jets don't usually like to rock the boat. So unless there's a big shocker somewhere heading into this preseason and into the upcoming start of the season, I think what you see with this team tends to be what you get. So yeah, we'll have to see how this group does. I'm not obviously reading too much into preseason games. It's not exactly like this is a particularly life or death situation, but we will get to see the Oilers in town this evening. Should be a good game. Should be an opportunity for the Jets youth to stretch their legs. Let's see how some of the youth handle playing alongside a guy who is a future Hall of Famer in Jonathan Toews. But curious to know your expectations. Drop your comments below or at my social medias at HLivingLoco and at @LO_Winnipeg Jets. In just a little bit, I want to spend some time talking about the specific players to watch out for in game number 2 here, because there's a few guys that I haven't necessarily addressed, and they might be some of the more interesting names to consider as we, talk about not only the preseason, but also the start of the regular season. Before we dive into that, though, I want to talk to you about watching your finances and how there's an easy way to do it with Monarch Money. Most folks can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth. Whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments, if you don't have the full picture, you could be leaving money on the table. That's why Monarch Money is here to help. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. It's made for people with busy lives and does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts and minutes, see clear data viz, and get smart categorization of spending. It helps you actually feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. If you are somebody who likes to set financial goals with a partner or spouse, Monarch Money can help condense all of your finances into one easy to access spot so you can stay on the same page together, make sure that you're meeting your financial goals, and helping to cut back spending where you need. If you have lots of investments and you want to make sure that your portfolio is healthy and active, Monarch Money can collect all of those in a single location and make sure that you are not sinking money into inefficient investments, making sure that your trends for growth continue to track the way you want it to so that you have the exact portfolio you need and desire. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Hey, friends, and welcome back to this episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Everydayers, thank you so much for rejoining us in tonight's episode as we are just wrapping up with players to watch heading into preseason game number 2. Some of this will be a little bit of a couple of names I haven't talked about. Probably nothing too shocking. Obviously Toews is going to be the one that everyone wants to see. Is there really anyone else that I think, folks are paying money here for? Probably not, right? I think everyone is in on Big Johnny T. But if I'm keeping an eye out for some players that I think have some interesting things to either prove or to continue to improve upon, the first name that I'm looking for here is Cole Perfetti. After a bit of a legendary moment last playoffs, I think a lot of folks took stock of what his entire postseason picture was and really what the entire season was. And there were a lot of areas where Perfetti took a big step forward. The feistiness, the wall battles, the forced turnovers, the defensive plays, the forechecking game, all of these things took pretty noticeable steps forward. I think where Perfetti is still trying to grow his consistency is really in that play driving ability, especially at 5v5. In some of those games during the postseason, he was present, but maybe not as influential as you'd hope for. And that's not necessarily a complaint against him. I think it's more just a way that the Jets play at 5v5, and perhaps they didn't quite feature his strengths and weaknesses in the way that you'd want. But, I think this year, a lot of folks are hoping that 91 really grows from that 1.6 moment and takes it to another level. If he can start to get into the 60 or 70 point range, you are starting to get really, really great performances from him night in and night out. That, to me, will start to demonstrate that his game is growing. He's able to have a more pronounced impact, and he'll hopefully earn more ice time as a result. His game is already growing in a lot of areas. Now he'll have a big chance to do it on power play 1. Ehlers is gone. Perfetti is stepping in, and this could be his chance to really make his mark in camp and show that he should be given Nick's old spot. Will he run with it? I don't know. I think that is still up for debate, and I can't really make any assurances, but I'm darn sure willing to find out and hopeful that he can have hopefully a really big game, a good performance, and something that sort of springboards him into the start of this season. Elsewhere, Ville Heinola has kind of been on the cusp of, making it in the NHL, then not making it, and sitting in the press box, playing for the Moose. He's really not had a great couple of years, especially since he broke his ankle. And so I'm curious to know how he'll process this and handle coming into camp. Obviously, of the players who are likely to get waived, I think he's probably on the cusp of that. Wouldn't shock me if he goes back to the Moose and eventually, moves back overseas. There seems to be a lot of these guys who actually do pretty well when you look under the surface and find out that they're actually helping to drive shot share and offense on the back end. But because they're not 6'2", 6'3", they don't actually get seen as being particularly big players. They don't necessarily throw lots of big hits. And Heinola himself is not the kind of guy who has, I would say, sparkling defense. It's more about defense by keeping the puck away from the opponent. So that's his game. He's not really the traditional kind of blue liner. He is 6 foot, but, he's not really thick in the usual sense. He's not Shen 225, 6'2", towering giant, that kind of stuff. But if there's a guy that I'm hopeful to maybe make a case for being the 7th defender, Heinola would be great to hopefully get that role. I think he deserves a bigger shot than he's gotten, but of course, the Jets may disagree, so we'll just have to wait and see. At forward, I'm also looking for maybe some big performances from Wagner. Wagner and Julian in particular, I've got some time for. Wagner, I think, is going to be one of those guys who just kind of plays a sort of every shift kind of game. Nothing super spectacular, nothing amazingly flashy, but he has shown that he has streaks of being very productive. Certainly in the goal scoring department, we'll see if that's a thing he can continue to sustain throughout this upcoming season. Not every game, mind you, but at least being a guy who can chip in maybe 30, 40 points for the Moose, that'd be really good. And if he can translate that maybe into a bottom line role, I think that'd be fantastic. Keep developing those guys internally. Keep, having to rely on your own players and guys that you've drafted and developed rather than wasting money maybe on some free agents who aren't going to do that for you. I think that who the Jets bought in so far actually will do some pretty good stuff. Koepka and Pearson seem like they'll be solid for the bottom six. But, you think about a lot of other teams out there who spend money on external free agents. Maybe this is a way for the Jets to save a little bit of cash. Julian, obviously his last couple of years haven't exactly lit the world on fire. In particular, last season, I think with London, things didn't look super great. But in camp, the offense hasn't exactly been there, but the PKing ability and defensive work that he does has been, in my mind, sensational. So I think there's very clearly a way to project him into an NHL spot. I'd like to see him take that next step at 5v5 and continue to hone that offensive skill. I think he does a lot of the other stuff really well when it comes to defensive details, maybe a bit like David Gustafsson in that way. However, can he turn that into a bigger offensive production? Can he start to drive play and results? That part we'll have to wait and see. But a lot of guys I'm watching out for in preseason. Should be a fun time this evening, hoping that you will watch alongside with me and we can hopefully witness a Jets win together. Initially, I said tomorrow's episode for the reaction was maybe going to be delayed, but I think I will have reaction to preseason game number 2 on Wednesday. Should be a fun one. I'm hoping to get to give you some insight into Jonathan Toews and how he did. But for tonight's show, that's all the time that we have. I thank you so much for listening and making Locked On Jets your first listen of the day every day. We'll see you back here tomorrow, so have a great night. And as always, go Jets, go.